I'm not too sure if I should apologize for making this video as late as I am making it, because this news is technically 4 days old. But we have some new Abbotsford Canucks in the Vancouver Canucks farm system, and we gotta talk about one of them. That's no disrespect to the other 4 guys that were also signed for a total of 5 on July 15th, but we're talking about one of the most interesting brand new names that the Abbotsford Canucks have introduced to their system, courtesy of Abbey Canucks GM Richard Seeley. Let's talk about the signing of Ryan St. Louis. This is your newest Abbotsford Canucks left winger from a few days ago, and there is a very, very cool connection here. Obviously, Ryan St. Louis is the son of Martin St. Louis, Montreal's head coach, a Tampa Bay and New York Rangers legend, a guy who is literally a multi-time Art Ross winner, Hart Trophy winner, Stanley Cup champion. There's a lot that Marty St. Louis was able to accomplish in the National Hockey League. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason there. And his son, Ryan, is now in the Abbey Canucks system. This tweet talks about the signings of Quinn Emerson, Ryan St. Louis, Gavin Wyatt, and Tim Viggo, not to mention goaltender Mitchell Weeks, also coming over to Abbey on 1-year AHL contracts for the 26-27 season. The graphic goes out there and showcases Ryan St. Louis as depicted in the NCAA. Let's dive into the profile here and get into whom it is the Canucks are adding to their farm team. Ryan St. Louis is 23 years old, 5'10", 181, a left-handed left-wing player out of Burlington, Vermont, USA. Take a look at the 2021 Elite Prospects Scouting Report that was written about this guy back when he was draft eligible at that time. Ryan St. Louis uses in-stride passes, look-off passes, setting up defenders on a curve instead of a straight line, some first-touch deception and patience before driving past the opposition and trying to gain body positioning. Mechanically, he is sound across the board. Hands in front with distance in between feet while shooting, freed top hand while handling for control, and a projectable stride with some skating skills. Now, that is a very articulate scouting report when it comes to the mechanics of what Ryan St. Louis does. For what it's worth, though, if you read the Elite Prospects Scouting Guide, they actually do have Ryan St. Louis as, how do I say this lightly? They had him as an F-grade prospect, which is not ideal. No, it is not ideal, but still, he's a guy that did get a scouting report back in 2021. And if you go over to what he was doing in that season, for the entirety of the NTTP, he had 31 points in 50 games there. So, not fantastic production. I can see why he went undrafted when he was draft eligible. The next few years, though, saw a really interesting development path for Ryan St. Louis. He had 1 season with the Northeastern University Huskies, only getting 2 points in 38 games. He then leaves the Huskies system and plays a season with the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL, where he lights it up as an overage junior player. 72 points in 58 games played, 30 goals, 42 assists. Obviously, the guy's 19, playing against mostly junior competition, so it's reasonable to see him dominate in that league. And then the next 3 years, he goes over to Brown University and has some really interesting production there as well. He went from 24 points in 30 games to way over a point per game, 29 points in 23 games, to then having his production cut in half in 7 more games. 15 points, 30 games. He was a minus 15. This has been a really strange development path for a guy that the Abbotsford Canucks are bringing into their system in 2026. Ryan St. Louis may not have the chops that his dad once had, because if we take a look at it, I mean, Ryan is 23 years old. By the time Marty was 23, he was already a mainstay Tampa Bay guy, I'm pretty sure. Is that correct? I mean, he was undrafted, right? So 23 years old, that would have been 1998. No, actually. He was coming out of the AHL's St. John's Flame system. Maybe there is a chance, actually, for Ryan to go out there and establish an NHL career for himself late into his 20s. Let's actually do that. Let's compare Ryan St. Louis to Martin St. Louis and just try to ask whether or not Marty St. Louis' long-term profile opens the door for Ryan to actually carving an NHL path for himself. So Ryan St. Louis just wrapped up this season with the Brown University NCAA team, and that's the same 22-year-old season where Martin St. Louis was a member of St. John and Cleveland. Marty was a full-time AHL guy the very next season whilst providing 2 points in 13 Calgary Flames games at the age of 23. Ryan St. Louis' 23-year-old year is yet to happen with the Abbotsford Canucks. So, you know what? I actually stand corrected. Marty St. Louis took a long time to actually become an NHL player and inevitably become the superstar that he ended up becoming with the Tampa Bay Lightning, posting up 94-point seasons, posting up 100-point seasons, posting up back-to-back 90-point seasons. Marty St. Louis was a legend. 5'7", 181. Ryan is 5'10", 181. So hey, there's already one advantage that Ryan St. Louis has over his father. The Abby Canucks bringing this guy into their organization. Obviously, Richard Seeley is doing a pretty good job adding some names, bringing some people in. Ryan Johnson was the former Abbotsford Canucks general manager, and now he's managing the Vancouver Canucks, so they needed to get somebody else to fill in that GM role down in the AHL. And if there's anything to say about it, I'm actually really interested in seeing how some of these one-year AHL contract guys end up performing, essentially since some of them will be getting their first taste of actual pro hockey. Ryan St. Louis was a collegiate athlete this entire time, so this is going to be his first taste of pro hockey experience. Marty St. Louis' first taste of pro hockey experience came straight out of the University of Vermont. Although I will say, Marty St. Louis was a very productive NCAA player. Look at this, 85 points in 35 games at 20 years old. That's ridiculous. The guy was over 2 points a game in the NCAA. So things are looking really interesting when you compare Ryan St. Louis to his father, Martin St. Louis. Is it guaranteed that Ryan ends up having a career similar to his father? Who really knows? But then again, you got to think about it like, hey, Marty St. Louis has a number of sons. Mason St. Louis and Lucas St. Louis still have the opportunity to potentially do that as well. Mason is 18 years old, and Lucas is 21, but also still playing in Harvard. So his career, professionally at least, is yet to begin as well. Mason St. Louis playing in the USHS Prep School League. Interesting. And then he'll be going over to Dartmouth. Collegiate boys. We like to see it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Martin St. Louis' son, Ryan St. Louis, signing an Abbotsford Canucks contract to start out his pro career with the Abby Canucks? Do you think he has a career for himself in the National Hockey League? Why or why not? I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.